Harbor triggered a panic on the west coast of this country that led to the creation of the Japanese internment camps. It is a dark page in American history in which thousands of Japanese Americans were uprooted and resettled into camps. This evening, Len Clements continues his special report with a look at how two Valley residents' lives were changed because of their heritage.
Perhaps the single most difficult thing to understand about this story is that most of these people were then and are now American citizens. They were born and raised here in America, but in 1942, the United States government locked them up because they looked like the enemy.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
At that point, words were being spoken in Congress, which was reported that the Japs ought to be sent to concentration camp. We ought to treat the Japs the same way they treated the Pearl Harbor situation, not differentiating we as citizens here as different from the Japanese nationals who were the members of the Japanese Imperial Army and Navy that did this.
2 months or so went by, and all of a sudden they said, you have 2 weeks or so.
Turn your face this way a little bit now. There, that's good. Now, looking right here.
Hiro Nomura was born and raised in Glendale. Today, he's a professional photographer who runs his own studio in Scottsdale. But in 1942, it was a different story.
My brothers and sister and my cousins, they were going to North High. They got sent home one day, so don't come back. So we got together and restored everything.
They were moved to a government-run camp called Poston, located on an Indian reservation about 15 miles south of Parker. With a population of 17,806, it was the third largest city in Arizona at the time after Phoenix and Tucson. It was the larger of Arizona's two major concentration camps. There's almost nothing left of it now. Most of the buildings were sold off as scrap when the camp was closed at the end of the war. What was once a 72,000-acre complex is now farmland along the banks of the Colorado River. There's no monument here, except for the rotting remains of a wooden barrack. At the time, the government attempted to explain what was going on.
They are not prisoners, they are not internees. They are merely dislocated people, the unwounded casualties of war.
American citizens were being held and were presumed guilty until proven innocent.
Only those evacuees whose statements and whose acts leave no question of their loyalty to the United States are permitted to leave.
On August 19th, 1942, the Arizona Republic reported that no Japanese evacuated can complain either of mistreatment or of lack of justice.
In the back of my mind, I said, well, they're going to come after the people who came from Japan, the immigrants that came from Japan like my father and maybe even my mother, but they weren't going to touch a citizen like myself. You see, I figured, well, I'm an American citizen.
Masa Noshita, born and raised in California, was given 2 weeks to sell or store the family's possessions. They were taken from their home and placed behind barbed wire at a place called Gila, about 40 miles south of Phoenix. This was the other of Arizona's two major camps. There's not much left here now, the slabs of some buildings, but 40 years ago, this was the fourth largest city in Arizona. This was home to more than 13,000 people who were locked up because their skin was yellow and their eyes were slanted. Schools were eventually set up in camp for the children. Some of their teachers were Japanese Americans, while others were Caucasian. Frances Montgomery was one of them. She taught at the Gila camp for 2 years.
There were lots of people that really were prejudiced about my going in. I was told by one of the men that was working down on the camp that I'd better not teach in the camp or I'd never teach again. I'd never teach another day.
She ignored that warning, but found that there were other problems with teaching in a concentration camp.
We said the Pledge of Allegiance every day. It was kind of hard to say, you know, with justice for all. You said it, but you thought, well, do we have it yet?
Paul Robertson was director of one of the camps here in Arizona. Do you feel the same way about it now as you did then?
Pretty much, yes.
And how do you feel about it?
That it was all unnecessary. No, I don't think. I think that it cost the government a great deal of money to do what they did, and I don't think that it was necessary.
Our government made a snap decision and said that these people are a threat with absolutely no evidence. There had not been one case of espionage, there had not one case of sabotage. The entire evacuation of the Japanese American population was based on speculation and rumor.
When I started to come back to visit this site, I used to literally just cry, break down. And as time goes on, and because so many people want to come back here, I bring them out here and show them all the various spots and where they might have lived. They could tell me their block. I could just about point it out to them. It's come to the point where I still feel a little sadness, but I no longer cry too much about it.
Not all of the Japanese Americans who lived here in the valley were locked up. Tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, we'll meet one such man who was allowed to go free due to a strange twist in the law. Bill?
Thank you, Len. Thank you very much.